Welcome to Rise to Realize. Unexpected tales from an ordinary life. Inviting you to rise above the mundane to realize the full potential of life. I'm your host, Arda Ozdemir, and here's episode 8. Sometimes I don't feel good enough, and that's okay. Hi there. Yes, that was the title of our episode. And yes, there are times that I don't feel good enough. And whenever I feel like that, my energy gets drained. It literally flows out of my body. And I'm sure you're familiar with this. It feels yucky. It feels painful. But what can I do? What can we do? It comes so naturally. It's there. For me, usually the feeling of not being good enough shows up when I compare myself to others. In those times, obviously, I guess, I'm not happy where I am. And I look at others who, in my eyes, made it, succeeded in life. Then I ask myself why I am not as good as these people. And that question brings me even more down as I start to judge myself and finding everything that is wrong with me. Yes, I know I should not compare myself to others. And yes, I know I should not beat myself up, especially when I'm already feeling down. But you know what? In those moments, I do feel not good enough. What can I say? Even though it's painful, I can't help it to feel that way. And I don't want to negotiate with my feelings that are arising right there, in that moment, in my body and in my mind. I guess what I'm trying to say is everything is natural. We don't need to hide an emotion or a feeling because we are ashamed of feeling that way. Therefore, I was thinking, instead of getting rid of this feeling, this yucky feeling, or patching it with some positivity, why don't I experiment? Why don't we all experiment on how to get through this energy, through this painful feeling? I know, it's not easy. It's not easy to do, to stay in that energy. I know that because I've been there for most of my life. So now, I want to take you back about 10 to 15 years to those days when I was in the corporate world. You can imagine back then how I had to mask this feeling of not being good enough. I was running an accounting and finance team, and I had to perform. I had to function. I had to produce, of course. I had to interact with people on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. And I couldn't really give in to my insecurities and not perform, right? I had my career, so I had to mask everything that was going on within me. I'm not sure I was the only one who was masking his insecurity, but in any instance, my life in the corporate world was not an easy one, as you can imagine. It was tough. It was tough because that I am not good enough voice in my head made everyone around me smarter, wittier, cooler than me. And it became an intimidating factor in all of my interactions. Even now, remembering those days makes me sweat and makes me feel smaller and smaller. In my eyes, of course. In my head, maybe. Okay, I kind of sense what you're thinking, that I'm comparing myself again to others. And you're right. Yes, I do. Yes, I do that, but not because I want to torture myself, but because I want to be that perfect person that others expect or want me to be. So I look at these people who have succeeded or gained some recognition in the public eye. so that I can be like them. I can learn to be like them. I hope you understand this and understand me at a deeper level. Well, despite of what I was feeling inside, I have responded to those expectations of others very well indeed, and finally became a VP finance at the top of my career. Of course, before I left, that's the position I was holding. Back then, and still some today, I loved getting that recognition for doing a great job. I craved for it. I wanted to be included in every conversation, to feel worth, to feel valued, wanted to be involved in every project so that I can show myself how valuable I am, how good I am, and wanted to be invited to every meeting. But looking back, it was all a vicious cycle. Because whenever I felt recognized and was feeling good, then all of a sudden, there will be a comment or some type of disregard or an action of dismissal, and all of a sudden, I will find myself down again. My other side will creep up and tell me that I wasn't that good. For example, and there are many examples, but I will give you one. I will go to a meeting feeling great that I'm involved with this important project, right? But then during the meeting, somebody will not acknowledge the point I'm trying to make, or wouldn't give me the positive feedback that I expected. Or my boss, of all the people, would not notice the hard work that I've been putting in. My friends, things will happen in those meetings, and they will pull me down. Looking back at those years, I now realize that I had this little hungry guy in me, literally a little kid who craved for recognition, who was hungry for acknowledgement, and he will never get it, no matter what he did. And whatever he got, nothing would be enough for him. And in some meetings, it will get really interesting, as if universe played some little tricks on me and on this little inner child of mine. Yes, listen to this. We are in a meeting. I make a great point, like I will always do, and no one notices it. The meeting continues, and then one of my colleagues, one of my friends, brings up a very similar point. I don't know whether he hears from me or not. He comes up with this idea, and then everybody applauds him, as if he is this genius guy who just came up with that original idea. In my head, I want to scream. I want to scream and tell everybody, hello guys, I made that same point 10 minutes ago. And in those days, I didn't have any clue how to deal with these ups and downs. I was going crazy. And that's why I was anxious, actually, and mildly depressed. And I was merely a slave to my anger and resentment, after all. And I couldn't stop blaming others for making me feel this way. Of course, finding fault at others or bashing myself didn't really get me anywhere. It only made me feel more depressed, more anxious. I felt that I was stuck in this vicious cycle and buried under these limiting life patterns. Today, from time to time, I still feel not good enough. But it's a different energy because I have tools to manage this low energy. Yes, it happens. Someone mentions a teacher or a book or a workshop that is successful, I immediately go back to how far behind I am from being recognized. I don't see how well I'm doing today. Working with so many people and empowering them to change their lives, affecting their lives in a very positive way. But no, in that moment, all of that disappears. And there's only me bashing myself, for not doing enough, or for not being good enough. It may feel like it's the same energy, but it's not. Its force over me, the force of this feeling, is no longer powerful. It doesn't overpower me anymore. Yes, I can still feel the urge to be recognized, but I don't act on it. So let me share a little bit more the techniques of Rise to Realize method with you. Now, whenever I feel triggered and start to feel not good enough, I immediately ground myself. I connect with the earth through the bottoms of my feet. I feel the floor underneath my feet. Only then I can take a step back and observe the emotional charge that is caused by my conditioning, that internal programming that runs that little kid and creates that craving for recognition. And what I do after that is something that I never thought I would do. So when my life conditioning blows into my heart like a cold breeze in the middle of a desert and whispers into my ears with that voice that I am not good enough. Yes, when that happens, I just look at that feeling. I sit with it. That is something that I never thought I will be able to do. Yes, right there, with that cold breeze, I look in the eyes of my fears, those fears of not being good enough. And I sit with it. I sit with that feeling. I sit with those fears. I challenge them. I say, so what? What if I am not good enough? What's at risk here? Just to understand myself, just to see what's there. And then I just listen to my body. Let my body feel it. Feel the fear. Feel the feeling of not being good enough. As I said before, I don't try to negotiate with my feelings. They are naturally coming up, so I let them flow. Flow through my head, through my heart, through my body. When I'm feeling like that, that's exactly how I'm feeling. Why should I change it? I don't need to judge it. This feeling is a good feeling, this feeling is a bad feeling. I don't need to push it away. I don't need to close myself down, close my heart down. So I let the fear of not being good enough pester my body. I let my emotions be all over the place and my thoughts going crazy about the person or the situation that made me feel not good enough. Yes, even the blame. My friends, all happening at once, and I allow its energy to even shake my body. Yes, when I was doing this, my body was shaking because the energy was flowing through my body. Again, the trick to endure this shock is to stay grounded. If I lost my connection with the earth, forget about it. I would be host. I would immediately become slave to this powerful force coming from my subconscious, from my internal programming, from my own fears that run my survival mechanism. If I could manage, and when I could manage to find the ground, the floor, there will appear a little space that will give me the ability to observe, ability to stay objective, and the ability to not get deeply involved. Obviously, this is not an easy thing to do, especially when we are feeling down. And we make it even worse when we label these feelings as negative, as it creates polarity, polarity within our energy system. It's okay to have that urge to be good enough. Nothing is wrong with that. The yearning to be recognized by others right? To meet their expectations, to get their approvals. It's all natural, especially when you know that's how you grew up. Even though we know that we can't meet everyone's expectations, we keep falling for that little kid's craving. His craving that comes from his childhood, from those moments when he yearned for his father's attention, recognition, and his approval. We can't bring those years back. But what we can do is we can accept the fact that everything happened. Yes, my friends, acceptance is big. And it's the second step after grounding. Through acceptance, I learned not to negotiate with my feelings. And what that meant was that when something came up, I went with it. So now, whatever is coming up, I don't refuse it. I don't show it down, as we discussed. What happens then is my thoughts on how I feel and what made me feel this way or who made me feel this way are absorbed into my heart. And my emotions of anger, frustration, and resentment are absorbed into my body. As I ground myself into the floor through the bottoms of my feet, I let my body process all what's coming up. And then the emotional charge and the physical sensations start to roll off into the earth through the bottoms of my feet. Naturally, as I'm staying with it, as I'm accepting everything that is arising. As I mentioned before, grounding and sitting with that urge helps a lot. And then you can accept whatever you are feeling. Well, after all, it's so natural for that kid to want his dad to see him. What's wrong with that? Nothing. It's a very, very normal. And that kid stuck inside us couldn't grow because we've been looking at others to recognize us. We thought they had the power. They had the food to feed this kid's hunger for recognition. But not anymore. The kid wants to grow now. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time in that suffering. We all know that the path of empowerment goes through us. It's our responsibility to make that kid mature enough to see his dad, to acknowledge his own wound and his dad's. Then rise above his internal programming for survival with a deeper understanding and acceptance of his life and his dad's. In this process, as you can see, nothing is labeled as good or bad. Everything is part of the process. I hope some of these tools resonated with you. I really do. And going forward, let's see if you like to apply them to the situations that make you feel not good enough. Maybe in those moments, you can find the floor underneath your feet to ground your energy. And then you can try to stay with whatever is coming. Remember, it's not that easy. So it will take a few trials. And definitely you will get better through practice. And just try to observe your thoughts, emotions, and sensations in your body, those physical sensations that are coming from this feeling. And see whether you can keep your distance to them, to these feelings, to these emotions, thoughts. Then you can objectively observe what's happening and stay with whatever is arising. Well, that's all for today, my friends. Wishing you best of luck I hope these tools will help you navigate the challenges of life and get you out of your limiting life patterns and realize your goals and dreams. Thank you for listening to Rise to Realize, Unexpected Tales from an Ordinary Life, a mindfulness-based empowerment method inviting you to rise above the mundane and realize the full potential of life. For more information, please visit us at r2r.org, r2r.org. And when you feel ready to apply these tools to your life and find love, joy, and fulfillment, please call me at 650-479-1741, or alternatively, you can email me at info@r2r.org. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and until we meet again, stay empowered, my friends.